Even in today's times, when crossovers and SUVs are practically taking on every segment, the bread earners for Mercedes-Benz in India are still the saloons. But when it comes to premium SUVs, the Mercedes-Benz GLC has been the bestseller, not just for Mercedes-Benz India, but in the segment as a whole. And it's not difficult to see why. It is practically an all-rounder, all the luxury SUV that you might ever need. And now, there is a new one. And it could actually be the nightmare that the competition was always expecting. Is it? Let's find out. Mercedes-Benz haven't messed up with the much-loved silhouette or the design of the outgoing car. It is 60mm longer, sits slightly shorter and looks a tad bit leaner than before. The taillights with their 3D detailing are sleeker and the headlights now flow into the grille. There is only one grille design on offer though, because there are no plans to bring in the more stylish AMG line anytime soon. And the avant-garde line that you see here is the only trim being offered. This, coupled with the multi-reflector headlights instead of the projector beams, lends the new GLC a more docile front end. But if you want to announce to the world that you are driving the star, there is a humongous Mercedes-Benz logo taking center stage on the face. The prettiest angle for the new GLC then is the side profile, where the car and the stylish new wheels show off their bigger sizes. The new GLC has a 15mm longer wheelbase, which has allowed for 70 liters of extra boot space as well. The good news is that the Space Saver spare wheel goes under the floor, which means that you can continue to use it and still have the entire 620 liters of cargo space at your disposal. Also, the loading lip, it's quite low and it's flat, which means loading of the luggage and simply pulling it out is absolutely easy. Furthermore, you can also drop the 40-20-40 seats using this switch right here, but you have to pick it up manually. And when you do use this switch, the front seat automatically goes in the front to accommodate this entire operation. And finally, you also get the electronic tailgate. The sideboard could be of use to smaller passengers. The doors open nice and wide, and ingress and egress is absolutely easy, just the way you would expect in a crossover or SUV. Once inside, you will notice the improved legroom that you get inside the car. It's almost as much as the older standard wheelbase E-Class. I'm not kidding, that's the kind of space that you get. And despite the slightly shorter height of the car, the headroom is actually not compromised at all, and even the visibility outside of the windows is excellent. The contouring of the seats is marginally different than the outgoing car, but we never had complaints about the comfort then, and it doesn't change with the new car either. The rear also continues to give you this manual window blind and also places the controls for the windows and the door in a more convenient position. Now, the space at the rear is wide enough to accommodate 3 lean adults, but you see, even the new GLC continues to be predominantly a rear-wheel driven car, so you still get this fat transmission tunnel. Add to that the bulge for the center armrest, and the third passenger, or the third adult at least, is not going to be that comfortable. The foot space is excellent too, and there is ambient lighting even under the front seats. The fit and finish at the rear is just as good as the front, which is good news. The cabin has a very airy feel to it, whether you go with the tan upholstery, the beige or the all black. There's the large glass house and the panoramic sunroof too, which has touch controls like some of the other Mercedes-Benz cars. Swipe to open the liner, swipe to open the roof. It is just like the touch-sensitive buttons on the steering wheel, which honestly, I am not a big fan of. Simply because sometimes while cornering, sometimes while using the steering wheel around bends, you end up pressing some of these switches, which isn't that great. But what I do like is the fingerprint scanner that you get for the infotainment, which lets you scan your finger and have 7 of these profiles for 7 different users saved right here for different settings like the seat positions, air conditioning, your steering preference, infotainment preferences, etc. So all you need to do is when you get inside the car, let it just scan your finger and it knows which is the user that's logging in, and all those settings are automatically loaded. You can also ask the car to set up an ergonomic driving position for you by simply selecting your height, input your height, say start positioning, and it will start positioning. And this is a feature that we've seen in other Mercedes-Benz cars as well. However, we've often found this feature to have a recline angle which is a bit too extreme, which is why for this particular feature I like to take manual control. The massaging function has sadly been given the miss with the new GLC, and that's going to make certain customers feel shortchanged considering the outgoing car got them. You don't even get ventilated seats, what you get is seat heating, and that in most parts of our country is going to be useless. But on the topic of cooling, air conditioning, etc., you do now get an air filtration system, and you can even see how clean the air inside the car is on this particular screen. The AC vents, the dashboard, the overall layout of the dashboard, the components and the infotainment screen, it's all inspired by the C-Class as you'd expect. And this is easily the more intuitive screen compared to what the competition offers in the Q5 or the X3, and that's including the new iDrive 8 system, which will eventually make its way to an all-new X3. That is still not going to be as intuitive as this. This is absolutely easy to use. It is complemented by a fully digital, customizable instrumentation. New hybrid powertrains are a big talking point for the GLC globally, but the inflated cost of an engine plus batteries plus that hybrid powertrain, it's just a little too much, which is why Mercedes-Benz India has followed a similar path that was taken for the C-Class as well, which means that you only get mild hybrid tech with the GLC as well. But unlike the small displacement petrol in the C-Class, the GLC goes with a significantly more powerful 258 PS 2-litre turbo petrol to complement its SUV intent. The diesel option comes in the form of the 200 PS 2-litre turbo diesel. The mild hybrid system improves the fuel economy of these engines by 15 and 10% respectively, while lowering their CO2 emissions as well. In fact, these are now two of the cleanest engines in the category. Both the engines also get a 23 PS boost from the integrated starter generator or the 48-volt mild hybrid system. And with that kind of assistance, both the engines are actually quite quick. The petrol, for example, goes from 0 to 100 in a little over 6 seconds. Let me demonstrate that for you. We've got an empty patch of road all to ourselves. Sounds good too, and it does feel quick. Now these performance figures or power and torque figures are comparable to the Q5 petrol, and like the Q5, all-wheel drive is now standard across the range even for the GLC. So not only on the petrol but also on the diesel engine, which the Q5 doesn't get. And that 4MATIC all-wheel drive system also ensures that getting off the mark is very clean. Getting these 0 to 100 sprints, if you are in the mood, that is also in an optimum fashion. So you always get some really good starts and the power is put down cleanly to the road. And when you're not in that mood, the 4MATIC will act as a safety system by sending up to 45% of the power to the front wheels to aid traction and stability. And because 4MATIC is standard, you also get the off-road mode as standard. You don't have to buy an extra off-road mode or whatever. So that essentially will give you hill descent control. And when you're driving in the rough, it will also make sure that the power and torque is only fed to the wheels that have traction, so that you can get out of tricky situations or manage better traction on tricky surfaces. Unfortunately, the India spec GLC doesn't get adaptive suspension, so you can't raise the height of the car. That said, if you're going to be driving on bad roads often, which is most of India's roads right now, then the conventional steel springs still make for a better choice considering how easily the air suspension fails on our conditions. There's another cool feature for terrain like this. It's called the transparent hood or the transparent bonnet feature. So as the name suggests, Essentially, it is going to show you what's happening right at the front axle, what's around your front axle. So how it does that is, you have the 360-degree cameras. You have the rear camera, the front camera, and a camera each below the wing mirrors. So it will use imagery or footage from these 4 cameras, stitch it all together, and then show you on the move, on the screen, what's below the front axle. So you can negotiate a hurdle or an obstruction much better. Now, of course, for this feature to work, the vehicle has to be on the move. Only then it can gather all the data. It can't do it standing still. So if you're going to use this feature to maybe look for pets or strays hiding under your car, it's not going to work. Kicking the wheel, leaving the engine running to protect these animals is still going to be the better way to go about it. But yes, this feature will come in handy if you are driving off the road without a spotter, or in the real world conditions, if you want to negotiate a pothole, you're not sure exactly where the placement of the pothole or the obstruction is. This feature is definitely going to come in handy. Now, why it's also a big deal is, one, it's a cool feature to have, but for the cameras to give this kind of feed and for the system to stitch it all together and show it to you in real time when you are actually moving, and this only works till about 20 kilometers an hour, but even then, to be able to pull this off, you need some really serious processing power in that system. And I'm glad they've included some really fast processors, so that also translates to the other infotainment functions working absolutely seamlessly, slick operation, etc., etc. Whether it comes to evading potholes or hitting the winding roads, the new GLC does feel agile. Without the adaptive dampers, you can't really stiffen up the chassis too much. You can engage the sport mode to only get quicker engine and gearbox responses, make the steering a bit more responsive, weigh up a little bit more, and get the ESP to work a little better. Even the braking responses feel a little different in the sport mode. But that's about it. You can't really stiffen up the chassis in any way. So if you want a more engaging drive, a stiffer car to go around bends, etc., you might have to look at something like the GLE. Or if you don't want that larger car, then probably you'll have to shop elsewhere, maybe something like a BMW X3. And if you are really very serious about corners and the way the car should handle, etc., maybe then stretch a bit more over the GLC and get yourself the X3 M40i. The GLC is more comfort-oriented in that sense, both for the front and the rear seat passengers. The driving dynamics aren't edge-of-the-seat entertaining then, but enough to put a smile on your face whether you're driving in the city, on the highway, around the winding roads, or even off the road. The steering is responsive, the brakes are progressive, the visibility is excellent, and the ride comfort reflects the badge on the hood. The safety features are also enhanced now with ADAS functions. So to sum it up, like the older GLC, the new one is also a safe bet and arguably an all-rounder. I use the word arguably because you see the exterior trimming could have been a little better. The lack of the ventilated seats or the massage seats or adaptive dampers, that is sorely missed. But then again, this is still a one-stop shop because unlike its competitors, it gives you the option of both a petrol and a diesel engine. It has the fairly green, mild hybrid tech. It's got a spacious and very comfortable cabin, just the way it should be in a Mercedes-Benz. And then it's got a very spacious boot as well. So for those with an active lifestyle and wanting to road trip, etc., there's a lot of space back there too. So if you've been waiting for over a year for the GLC, the bestseller is back.